Hello, class. My name is Aron Tebe. I'm currently 24 years old in the current issues of trying to fit well leadership class. I'm currently here to talk about vaping, but I want to introduce myself first. The reason why I chose this topic was in the first place because it means a lot to me, and I have a lot of people around me who participate in vaping, which is something that I'm not really a big fan of, and I want to be able to change that and be able to, to overall fix what our problem is with vaping as it is today in our world, in our society, especially with young individuals. So I chose this topic mainly just to give an insight, give a pretty much an introduction and give a purpose as to why we should stop vaping, why we should slow it down, or just overall take it away. Because with something that vaping starting as light becomes something as big as it is now, it's a huge problem that we live in today. Now I want to read what I wrote down. Have you ever know? I want to start off with vaping. Have you ever noticed that suddenly everyone seems to be comfortable just blowing smoke from their mouths, whether or not it's a cigarette or marijuana? The crazy thing about it is that, in fact, that the very thing everyone seems to dwell on is vapes. Vaping, in a way, has almost become like a pandemic, and specifically in the United States, meaning this is a global issue, not just the United States, but everywhere. Vaping is almost like a trend, Vaping, aka the e-cigarette exactly, has been around since 2003 and was invented by Chinese pharmacist Han Lik. And he originally developed the vaping. It was just to be an alternative for smoking. But now, as of February 2020, 2020, February 2020, 2,800 people were hospitalized because of vaping devices, and out of that, 68 were confirmed dead. And out of that, 68 people were confirmed dead because of lung injuries by the end of the same month. The thing with vaping is that there's vaping with non-nicotine and vaping with nicotine, but a lot of people are going towards the nicotine. And nicotine, if you read about it, nicotine causes such things as heart failure, brain dysfunction. It's a lot. And it's specifically popular with teens, and it's hurting teens the most. Now my first point I want to talk about is how over time, especially around this year, 2022, vaping has become a real issue. Now, problem is that since in 2022, the teenage vaping statistics has become 26.5% of high schoolers with indisposable e-cigarettes, compared to the only 2.4% in 2019, meaning that vaping in 3 years has jumped up a vast amount in percentage since before, meaning that more people are using it. It's almost become a trend. And you see everybody, if you walk around, you see a lot of people have vapes in their hands. One out of every 5 people have vapes, especially women. A lot of women have vapes more than men, but regardless, a lot of people have vaping just in general. Next point we'll discuss is why it seems to attract young individuals, with mainly teenagers, and how I believe influence from adults trigger this. My thing with vaping is that I realize that with vaping, the reason why it's almost like you learn something as a young child watching older people do things, and you start to develop these kind of, I guess you would call it, these kind of you can become drawn to want to do the things that adults are doing. So when a child witnesses a grown adult vaping or using something like that, as they get older and that person is still doing it, they want to develop they want to get their own try of it. So they buy these things, they start using the vaping stuff, and it's almost like their best friend sees them vaping, so they start vaping. The other friend sees them vaping, and it's almost like a circle. More people gather around, more people vape. Over time, that's how it's been. Now it's developed. Now it's hit young individuals, especially in high school, that people just keep vapes in their pockets. People keep vapes in their backpacks, in their just everywhere. There's always a vape around them. Now, the third point I would like to discuss is the effects of vaping and why they provide a huge threat to the world. Vaping itself, and I had it written down in my statistics right here. Now, vaping itself, more e-cigarettes, vapes contain nicotine. The addictive drug in regular cigarettes, cigars, and tobacco products, meaning that the same thing that's in cigarettes and marijuana is in vaping pens, meaning there's really no difference. Now, originally, when you vape, you're not supposed to vape. The idea of vaping was to vape not with nicotine products, but just with flavor, whatever, but without the sense of nicotine, meaning you want to get that feeling, you'll just get that sense of smoking it. But then more places have supplied vaping. And the CDC study found that 99% of the e-cigarettes sold in the such venues in the United States contain nicotine, meaning that these vendors are putting more nicotine in their products for vaping than less, and more children and more young adults and teenagers are buying it. So some vape product labels do not disclose that they contain nicotine, and some liquids marketed as containing 0% nicotine have been found to contain nicotine. So it's almost like a tricking people to gain that addiction to want to buy more. That way they make more money, but they're hurting younger individuals and adults in the process. Nicotine can harm the developing adolescent brain, and the brain keeps developing until about age 25. That means in that until about age 25, if you dedicate 4, 5, 6 years of vaping, you're hurting yourself, you're hurting your brain developing, you're not learning as much. And I'm not saying it's making you dumber, but it's slowing down how much process of information you can learn within that time span. And using nicotine in adolescence can harm the parts of the brain that control attention, learning, mood, and impulse control. You get more angry, you have more anger issues, you're not able to sit down in class and just understand what the teacher's teaching to you. Your mood is always all over the places because you don't have that vaping to help you with that. Each time a new memory is created, a new skill is learned. Strong connections or synapses are built between brain cells. Young people's brain builds synapses faster than adult brains. Nicotine changes the ways these synapses are formed. And using nicotine in adolescence may also increase risk for future addiction to other drugs. And just nicotine itself is already something that's hard to withdraw from. The withdrawal symptoms include irritability, restlessness, and feeling anxious or depressed. And that's pretty much what cigarettes and marijuana were doing. So it's like, what's the difference of vaping if it was made to be an alternative use that people are using it for the wrong uses, Now, another thing I want to discuss, the 4-point I'll provide experience. So 4-point, when it comes to vaping, I used to vape when I first entered college, freshman year. I had a friend who vaped. And he was vaping, I was vaping. But the thing is, that was my first time ever doing it. So the first time I walked in the room, we hanged out. He had a giant vape pen, like the size of this. It was like this size. So I said, why not me take a small swig of it? And I've never smoked before. So he told me it was harmless. I did it, and every time we would hang out, I would partake in this vaping, the smoke, not knowing that nicotine was in it. But I would get this feeling like it's making me feel relaxed. So over time, I wanted to buy my own, so I went to the vape store. Of course, I bought it, and having it, I would wake up, and as soon as I wake up, that'd be the first thing I do. Have it right there on the side, just ready to vape. So over time, I started learning that maybe I need this. Maybe it's gonna help me focus in class. But then I started seeing how I was doing my friend. My friend started becoming like, he was always angry about not having one with him. He'd be furious, and I started getting mad when I couldn't find mine, when I would lose it accidentally, and I had to realize that this vaping isn't good for me in the first place. So I had to let it go. I had to let the vape go. I stopped. He eventually stopped, and it just means a lot because it wasn't easy to stop. It took me maybe a couple months to finally just not want to vape no more. And it's almost like something that's not supposed to be an addiction became an addiction. And that's why I feel so hard about this because I could have went farther and became even more desperate with vaping. Now, my final point I was discuss the better outcomes that can be achieved if we educate each other not to vape would be to not vaping would be improve smell and taste, improve cardiovascular health, reduce withdrawal symptoms like cravings for smoking and stuff like that, lung function. Once you stop vaping, after a few days, your lungs start healing up again. It's all about once you stop, the process of healing starts. That's all it is. You can also increase blood circulation, improve fertility for women, because a lot of women sometimes complain about not being able to give birth, but those are also people who vape too. Not to say everybody is, but those who vape, who complain about fertility, that could be something that's stopping you. There's also it boosts your odds of quitting successfully, as well as just overall mindset and wanting to do better in life helps towards that. Now, why I think this affects health and fitness is because part of people's diets are to exercise, develop a healthy lifestyle, but vaping isn't something that's healthy. It isn't something that should be implemented into your lifestyle. And a lot of people, especially young adults, who it's best to start off as a young adult when it comes into entering the health and wellness, is that they still vape, and so it's like they can do the eating right, the exercising right, but if they can't even run mile because they're running out of breath because they're vaping, then their body's not doing them any good. And how vaping is affecting people now is that now people you see a lot of people with vaping in their hands consistently everywhere. You know, I say here that the vape product industry is an important part of the U.S. and a part of the U.S. economy, and about 8.1 billion in vape sales lead to 133,000 jobs and $22.1 billion in economic activity. Meaning that vaping has almost become like a main source, a main need in this world that we live in today, and that's not how it should be. And it's affecting people now because everybody thinks they need it, but they really don't. And my future thoughts, I feel like if vaping was to stop, or in a way, product to be limitedly sold, it would help decrease the amount of people that actually want to go vape. And just to end off everything, vaping is something that a lot of people will never seem to understand that it's hurting us more than it's helping us. But the problem is that we as a whole, we don't sit there and try to discuss with our families, our friends, on why we shouldn't do it. We just let it happen, think it that's okay. And it's like the more we do that, the more we just hurt ourselves in the process. So the whole purpose of me even trying to advocate about stopping vaping is just for you to educate others around you to just stop it themselves. And you just do your best and try everything. Thank you guys for watching my recording. Thank you guys for watching everything, and I did enjoy this class. You guys have a wonderful day.